let me ask you something. Do you know anyone over 75 who seems sharper than people 20 years than them? Who remembers your birthday, tells stories in perfect detail, and still beats everyone at cards on Sunday? And do you also know someone who, at the exact same age, seems to be fading? Frigging names. Losing their train mid-sentence. Repeating the same story 3 times in one afternoon. Here's the question nobody wants to ask out loud. What if the difference between those two people isn't luck? What if it isn't even genetics? What if it's 5 ordinary things they do, or don't do, every single day? Things so small, so normal, so woven into daily life, that almost nobody thinks of them as dangerous. If you're over 75, or you love someone who is, I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because by the end of this video, you're going to look at your own daily routine completely differently. And one of these 5 habits, I'd bet real money, is something you or someone you love is doing right now, today, without even realizing what it's quietly doing to the brain. Let's fix that right now. Now, most people believe that memory loss after 75 is just that the brain is like an old car, it's going to break down eventually, and there's nothing you can really do about it except wait. That belief is one of the most damaging myths in modern health conversations, and it's simply not accurate. Yes, the brain changes with age. Nobody's pretending otherwise. But changing and declining rapidly are 2 very different things. Researchers who study people who stay sharp into their 90s, sometimes called superagers, have found something remarkable. Their brains aren't necessarily free of age-related changes, but their daily habits are dramatically different from the average person's. So here's the hope: without the exaggeration, you probably can't stop the clock, but you have far more control over how your brain ages than you've been led to believe. And today, we're going to show you exactly where that control comes from. To help us break this down, I'm joined by someone who has spent her career studying exactly this: how everyday habits shape brain health in later life. Thanks for having me, Sarah. And I want to say right away, this isn't about scaring anyone. It's about awareness. Your brain uses about 20% of your body's total energy, even though it's only about 2% of your body weight. Think about that for a second. It's like a small business that somehow accounts for 1/5 of the entire city's electricity bill. That's a comparison. It is, but it explains everything. Because an organ that demanding needs constant fuel, constant blood flow, constant stimulation. When daily habits interrupt any of those 3 things, even in small, quiet ways, the brain notices. Not overnight, but over months and years, it adds up. There's a large body of research, including long-running studies on aging populations, showing that lifestyle factors, not just genetics, are strongly linked to how well cognitive function holds up in the 70s, 80s, and beyond. Genetics loads the gun, as researchers sometimes say. Daily habits pull the trigger, or they don't. So today isn't about fear. It's about identifying the trigger before it gets pulled. Exactly. So here's exactly what we're covering today. Dr. Marsh is going to walk us through 5 daily habits that are quietly linked to faster cognitive decline in people over 75, habits that feel completely harmless, even relaxing, but that research suggests may be working against your brain every single day. For each one, she's going to explain exactly what it is, why it matters, and this is the important part: exactly what to do instead. Simple, realistic changes. Nothing extreme. Nothing that requires special equipment or a gym membership. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear, doable checklist you can start using today, whether it's for yourself or for a parent or grandparent you're worried about. Quick hello if you're new here. Welcome to Clarity After 60, the channel where we take real research on aging, memory, and brain health and turn it into simple, practical advice anyone can use, no medical degree required. Dr. Elena Marsh has spent over 15 years researching cognitive aging, working with memory clinics, and studying what actually separates people who stay sharp into their 90s from those who don't. She's not here to sell you anything. She's here to help you protect what matters most. Let's into it. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something. In the comments below, tell us, which habit do you think is going to be on this list? A guess. Is it something? Sleep? Diet? Screen time? Drop your guess right now before we reveal it. I read every single comment, and honestly, I'm always surprised by how many people get it wrong. Let's see, you can call it. Okay, let's talk about number 1. Before we get into the list, Dr. Marsh, can you explain, in the simplest way possible, how the aging brain actually differs from a younger one? Because I think a lot of people picture it like a light bulb that just slowly dims. That's a really common mental image, but it's not quite right. Think of the brain less like a light bulb and more like a garden path. Over decades of life, you walk certain paths, certain thoughts, movements, memories, so often that they become wide, well-worn trails. Those disappear easily with age. But the paths you stop walking, those overgrown. Weeds move in. And here's the key thing, this isn't unique to old age. It happens to a 25-year-old's brain too, if they stop using a skill. Age just means you have more decades of accumulated habits, good and bad, shaping which trails are wide open and which ones are closing in. So the goal isn't to fight aging. It's to keep walking the right paths. Precisely. And also, importantly, to stop walking down the paths that are actively working against you. Which brings us to today's 5 habits. Before we go through these, I want to add one honest note. Nothing I'm about to describe is a substitute for medical care. If you or a loved one has noticed sudden confusion, rapid memory changes, difficulty recognizing familiar people, or any dramatic change in thinking, please talk to a doctor. That's not something to try to fix with lifestyle tips alone. It deserves a proper medical evaluation, because sudden changes can have treatable causes. What we're covering today is about the slower, everyday habits that shape brain health over years, not a replacement for checking in with your physician, especially if you're managing other health conditions or taking medications. Also, if any of the movement suggestions feel physically difficult, always go at your own pace and check with your doctor before starting anything new. Good to know. Okay, habit number 1. All right, Dr. Marsh, walk us through this first one. Habit number 1 is prolonged sitting, spending large stretches of the day in a chair or recliner without getting up. Not napping, not resting after a walk. I mean the pattern where someone sits down after breakfast and doesn't really get up again until lunch, then repeats that in the afternoon. Okay, be honest, how many hours are we talking about before it becomes a problem? Research on sedentary behavior generally starts flagging concern around sitting for more than an hour or 2 at a stretch without moving, especially when it adds up to most of the waking day. Here's how to actually change it, step by step. First, set a simple movement trigger, something you already do regularly, like a TV commercial break, the top of every hour, or finishing a cup of tea. Second, when that trigger happens, stand up. Third, do something light for 2 to 3 minutes. Walk to the kitchen, march in place, stretch your arms overhead, or walk to the mailbox and back. Fourth, sit back down and continue what you are doing. So it's not about exercise, really. It's about breaking up the sitting. Exactly, and here's why that matters so much. When you sit for long periods, blood flow slows throughout the body, including circulation that supports the brain. Movement, even light movement, helps pump blood and oxygen more efficiently through your system. Your brain runs on that oxygen and glucose supply constantly. Interrupting long sitting sessions is like periodically opening a window in a stuffy room. It doesn't fix everything, but it keeps things circulating the way they're supposed to. There's also a muscle-brain connection worth mentioning. Physical movement triggers the release of certain proteins in the body that support brain cell health and communication between neurons. You don't need intense exercise to get some benefit here. Consistent, gentle movement throughout the day appears to matter more than most people assume. What are the actual benefits someone might notice? Better mood throughout the day, often improved sleep at night, less stiffness, and over time, many people report feeling mentally clearer, less foggy. It also simply reduces the number of hours the body spends in that low circulation state. How often should people doing this? A good target is standing and moving for 2 to 3 minutes every 30 to 60 minutes during waking hours. You don't need a fitness tracker or a formal exercise plan, just a consistent trigger to remind you. That honestly sounds doable for almost anyone, even with limited mobility. That's the beauty of it. Even someone using a walker or a cane can do seated marching, arm raises, or a short supported walk to another room. The goal is breaking the stillness, not running a marathon. And if you've been sitting for hours reading this, this is your sign. Stand up right now for 30 seconds. I'll wait. Did that. Good. That's habit one handled. Now here's something even more important, because the next habit is one almost nobody thinks of as a brain issue at all. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's habit number 2? Habit number 2 is social isolation, specifically going through most days with little to no real back and forth conversation. I want to be careful here, because this isn't about blaming anyone for living alone or preferring quiet time. It's about a specific pattern, days, sometimes weeks, where the only conversation is a TV playing in the background, with no actual exchange of ideas with another human being. That feels like such a personal, emotional topic, not just a brain health one. It is emotional, but it's also deeply neurological. Real conversation is one of the most complex tasks your brain performs. You're listening, interpreting tone, forming a response, managing memory of what was just said, and reading facial expressions, often all within a second or two. It's basically a full-body workout for your brain, disguised as something enjoyable. So how does someone actually fix this? Step by step, especially if their social circle has gotten smaller with age, which, let's be honest, happens to a lot of people over 75. Completely fair point, and it's a real challenge. Here's a step-step approach. First, pick one small, repeatable social touchpoint. A daily phone call with a family member, a standing coffee chat with a neighbor, or a weekly visit to a senior center or community group. Second, protect that touchpoint like an appointment, put it on the calendar. Third, during that interaction, aim for genuine back and forth, not just listening. Ask a question. Share an opinion. Fourth, if in-person or phone contact is limited, video calls are a solid substitute. Seeing facial expressions activates more of the same brain regions as in-person conversation. Why does this matter so much scientifically? Long-term research on aging populations has consistently linked chronic social isolation with a higher risk of cognitive decline. One way to think about it, your brain has certain regions specifically dedicated to understanding other people, reading their emotions, predicting what they'll say next, managing the emotional back and forth of a relationship. Like any other part of the brain, if that region isn't used regularly, the pathways connected to it can weaken over time. What are the actual benefits people notice when they prioritize this? Beyond mood, which is significant on its own, regular meaningful conversation tends to support memory, quicker word recall, and a general sense of mental sharpness. It also often improves sleep and reduces stress, both of which independently support brain health. How much? Enough. Even 15 to 20 minutes of genuine, engaged conversation a day appears to make a measurable difference over time, compared to none at all. It doesn't need to be a long visit, it needs to be real. One good phone call beats 3 hours of TV in the background. I love that this one is honestly something anyone can start today with just a phone. Exactly, and I want to encourage anyone watching, if you have a parent or grandparent over 75, this is your reminder. That 5-minute call you keep meaning to make? It's doing more for their brain than you probably realize. But that's not the biggest mistake on this list. The next one might be the most overlooked of them all, and it's hiding in plain sight, in almost everyone's daily routine. Okay, now I'm nervous, because I feel like I do the same routine every day myself. You're definitely not alone, and to be clear, routine itself isn't the enemy. Routine can be wonderful, especially for stability and reducing stress in older age. The problem is a very specific version of routine, doing the exact same tasks, in the exact same order, with zero new information or challenge, for months or years on end. So it's not having a schedule, it's never learning anything new. Exactly right. Think back to that garden path analogy. If every single day looks identical, same breakfast, same TV shows, same chair, same nap time, no new names, no new problems to solve, you're essentially walking the exact same handful of trails every day and letting every other part of the garden grow wild. How does someone break this without turning their whole life upside down? You really need to. Small, consistent novelty works better than dramatic change anyway. Here's how, step by step. First, pick one small new thing to introduce into your week. A new recipe, a puzzle, a card game you haven't played before, a different walking route, or a few pages of a new book. Second, actually engage with it. Don't just observe, participate. Third, regularly. The brain benefits from novelty specifically, so repeating the exact same new activity every day for a year eventually becomes just another routine. Fourth, pair it with the earlier habits when possible. A new activity done with another person covers two habits at once. Why does novelty specifically matter so much to the brain? When you do something familiar, your brain runs on autopilot, efficient but not particularly demanding. When you encounter something new, your brain has to problem solve, adapt, and form new connections between brain cells. That process of forming new connections is one of the ways the brain builds what researchers sometimes call cognitive reserve, essentially a buffer of extra neural connections and pathways that can help the brain compensate as it ages. Studies on people who remain cognitively sharp into very old age often show a common thread. They tend to keep learning. Not necessarily formal education. It could be learning a new card game, picking up gardening, or figuring out a new gadget. The specific activity matters less than the mental stretching involved. What kind of benefits does from this? Often improved problem solving in everyday life, better memory for recent events, and, something people don't expect, a boost in mood and sense of purpose. Novelty tends to make days feel more distinct and memorable, rather than blurring together. How often should someone be doing new? Aim for at least a few times a week. It doesn't need to be daily, and it doesn't need to be complicated. Something as simple as trying a new recipe or taking a different route on your walk counts. The goal is just interrupting the autopilot pattern regularly enough that it becomes part of the rhythm of your week. I really like that this doesn't require money or a class. It's more of a mindset shift. It really is. And here's something even more important that connects directly to this next one. Because while your brain loves new challenges during the day, what happens at night might be undoing all of that progress. Okay, sleep. I feel like every health video eventually gets here. For a reason. Sleep isn't downtime for the brain. It's active maintenance time. Habit number 4 is inconsistent sleep. Going to bed at wildly different times, napping heavily during the day and then struggling at night, or consistently getting fragmented, poor quality sleep and just accepting it as normal for my age. Is it normal for sleep to change as we age? Some changes are typical: lighter sleep, waking more easily, needing a bit less total sleep. But chronic poor quality sleep, night after night, is not something to simply accept without addressing. Here's what to actually do about it. First, set a consistent wake-up time, even on days you didn't sleep well. This is more powerful for resetting your body clock than a consistent bedtime. Second, get natural light exposure within an hour of waking, even just sitting near a window, since light is one of the strongest cues for your internal clock. Third, limit long daytime naps to 20 to 30 minutes, and avoid napping late in the afternoon. Fourth, create a simple wind-down routine an hour before bed. Dim the lights, avoid stimulating television, and keep the bedroom cool and dark. Why is sleep so tied to brain health specifically, beyond just feeling tired? During deep sleep, the brain goes through a kind of cleaning process. Researchers have identified a system where fluid moves through brain tissue during sleep, helping clear out metabolic waste products that build up during waking hours. It's often compared to a nightly cleaning crew. The brain essentially takes out its own trash while you sleep. When sleep is chronically fragmented or too short, that cleaning process doesn't get to finish its job as effectively night after night. Sleep is also when the brain does a lot of its work consolidating memories, taking the information from your day and filing it into longer-term storage. Poor sleep doesn't just make you tired the next day. It can interfere with how well yesterday's experiences actually stick. What benefits does someone notice when they fix their sleep patterns? Sharper thinking during the day, better mood, improved memory, and often fewer of those frustrating word on the tip of my tongue moments. Many people also notice improved balance and energy, which has its own safety benefits. Any target for how much sleep is ideal? Most guidance for older adults points to somewhere around 7 to 8 hours in a 24-hour period, though quality matters just as much as quantity. Consistency, going to bed and waking around the same time daily, tends to matter more than chasing a perfect number of hours. This feels very achievable. It's really about consistency, not some complicated sleep hack. Exactly, and I want to encourage anyone who's been struggling with sleep for months to also mention it to their doctor. Sometimes there are treatable underlying causes. But the daily habits we just covered are a great foundation regardless. Now, here's the final habit. And honestly, out of all 5, this is the one most people are shocked to learn is connected to brain function at all. Water? Really? I get that reaction every time, but stay with me. Habit number 5 is chronic mild dehydration, not drinking enough fluids consistently throughout the day. And here's the tricky part specific to people over 75, the sense of thirst naturally becomes less reliable with age. Many older adults simply don't feel thirsty until they're already fairly dehydrated. So someone could be dehydrated without even realizing it. Exactly. And your brain is roughly 75% water by weight, which means it's particularly sensitive to hydration levels. Here's how to address it, step by step. First, keep water visible and accessible, a filled glass or bottle within arm's reach, rather than relying on remembering to get up and get one. Second, build fluid intake into existing habits, a glass of water with each meal, and one with any medication you take. Third, don't wait for thirst as your signal. Treat regular sips throughout the day as the plan, not the response. Fourth, if plain water is unappealing, herbal tea, milk, or water-rich foods like fruit and soup all count toward daily fluid intake. Why does even mild dehydration affect thinking? Even relatively small drops in hydration have been associated in research with reduced concentration, slower processing speed, and increased feelings of confusion or fatigue. Think of your brain's electrical signaling like a series of streams that need adequate water flow to carry signals efficiently between different areas. When that water level drops, the whole system has to work harder to do the same job, like trying to paddle a canoe through a shallow, muddy creek instead of a full river. What are the actual benefits of staying properly hydrated? Better concentration, more stable energy throughout the day, fewer headaches, and for many older adults, meaningfully reduced dizziness, which also has real safety benefits when it comes to fall prevention. How much should someone actually be drinking? General guidance for older adults is often the range of 6 to 8 cups of fluid a day, though this can vary based on individual health conditions and medications, which is exactly why it's worth a quick conversation with your doctor if you're unsure, especially if you're managing heart or kidney conditions where fluid intake needs to be more carefully managed. That's such an important caveat. This is one habit where more is automatically better isn't universally true for every single person, so a personalized check-in with a doctor is genuinely worthwhile here. Well, that's all 5. And I have to say, none of these are things I expected to hear about when we started, at least not framed as brain health. That's exactly why they're so overlooked. They don't look like brain habits. They look like ordinary parts of daily life. And that's precisely what makes them so powerful to change. Let's bring this all together for a second, because I think it's worth really sitting with what we just covered. 5 ordinary habits: sitting for hours without moving, going long stretches without real conversation, doing the exact same routine every day with no novelty, inconsistent or poor quality sleep, and chronic mild dehydration. None of them sound dramatic on their own. None of them headlines. But according to the research Dr. Marsh has walked us through, these are exactly the kinds of small, repeated patterns that shape how well the brain holds up over years and decades. And here's the transformation that's genuinely possible. This isn't about becoming a different person or overhauling your entire life. It's about small, specific shifts, standing up every hour, having one real conversation a day, trying one new thing a week, protecting your sleep schedule, and keeping water within reach. Each is small, but stacked together, day after day, they add up to a completely different trajectory for your brain over the years ahead. So the message isn't "it's too late" or "there's nothing you can do." It's almost the opposite. Exactly the opposite. The brain remains capable of forming new connections and adapting throughout life. That capacity doesn't switch off at a certain birthday. The question isn't whether change is possible. It's whether the daily habits are pointed in the right direction. Before we wrap up, what's the one thing you wish more people understood about making these changes? This is the biggest mistake I see. People try to change all 5 habits perfectly, starting tomorrow, and when it feels overwhelming after a few days, they give up entirely. These effects build over months and years, which means the changes also work gradually. You're not going to feel a dramatic difference after one good night's sleep, or one phone call with a grandchild. So what should someone actually do instead? Pick just one habit from today's list, the one that felt most relevant to you as we went through it. Focus on that one for the next 2 weeks until it feels natural, and then add the next one. Consistency in one small habit will always outperform an ambitious plan that collapses after 4 days. And please, be kind to yourself in this process. Missing a day, sitting too long, skipping your walk, none of that erases progress. What matters is the overall pattern over weeks and months, not any single day. That's such a relieving way to frame it. It should relieving. This isn't fear. It's about small, steady choices adding up in your favor. Dr. Marsh, this has genuinely changed how I'm going to think about my own daily habits, and I'm nowhere near 75 yet. That's the best time to start, honestly. These habits matter at every age. If this video helped you see your daily routine, or a loved one's routine, in a new light, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this kind of research-based content reach more families who need it. And I really do want to hear from you. Scroll down and tell us in the comments, which of these 5 habits are you going to focus on first? Be honest, we've all got one that stands out. If you're new here, hit subscribe, because we release videos like this one every single week, breaking down real research into simple, doable advice for healthy aging. And if today's video resonated with you, you're going to want to watch this next one, where we sit down again with Dr. Marsh to break down the single morning habit that researchers say has one of the biggest impacts on memory, and it takes less than 5 minutes to do. It's playing right on your screen now. Thanks for spending this time with us, and I'll see you in the next one.